A shocking revelation has emerged, leaving many questioning the integrity of the recent spy case collapse. The heart of the matter lies in the role of a key security advisor and whether their actions contributed to the downfall of a critical prosecution. The Education Secretary has stepped forward to clarify that Jonathan Powell, the Prime Minister's national security advisor, had no involvement in the substance or evidence presented in the case against two men accused of spying for China. This statement comes as a response to suggestions made by the conservatives, who implied Powell's role in withholding evidence from prosecutors. The charges against Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry were dropped last month, sparking criticism from ministers and MPs alike. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, assured the BBC that Powell had no part in discussions regarding the case's evidence, adding that ministers were deeply disappointed by the outcome. But here's where it gets controversial. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Stephen Parkinson, intervened, stating that the trial collapsed because the government failed to provide evidence labeling China as a national security threat. This has led to an urgent question being submitted in Parliament, with ministers facing pressure to explain the trial's collapse to MPs on Monday. The Conservatives have pointed fingers at Powell, suggesting he did not provide the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, with the necessary evidence. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp demanded an explanation for the government's decision not to disclose information demonstrating China's threat to national security during the 2021 to 2023 period. He went as far as to say that Powell should resign if he was indeed behind this decision. The Prime Minister, however, defended the government's position, stating that they could only rely on the previous conservative stance, which labeled China an epoch-defining challenge. The Prime Minister emphasized the need to prosecute based on the circumstances at the time of the alleged offense, shifting the focus to the Tory government's policy during that period. Several former Conservative ministers and advisers have weighed in, claiming there was no official designation of whether a country poses a threat. They argue that a document exists with hundreds of examples of Chinese activities threatening the UK at the time of the alleged offenses, which could have been used as evidence. One source from the last government stated, "I don't think there is a sane jury in the world that would look at that evidence and conclude China was not a threat." And this is the part most people miss. Former Conservative ministers also highlighted public statements, including those from the former head of MI5, Ken McCallum, who in 2023 described a sustained campaign of Chinese espionage on a pretty epic scale. The Liberal Democrats have criticized the government's approach to China, claiming it puts national security at risk. They urge the government to block the planning application for a new Chinese embassy in London, arguing that it would enable Chinese espionage on an industrial scale. The case against Mr. Cash and Mr. Berry, charged under the Official Secrets Act in April 2024, accused them of gathering and providing information detrimental to the state's safety and interests between December 2021 and February 2023. Under the Act, spying charges can only be prosecuted if the information passed on was useful to an enemy. Last month, the Director of Public Prosecutions announced that the case could no longer proceed due to the evidence failing to meet the evidential test. So, what do you think? Is the government's handling of this case a matter of national security or a political maneuver? Share your thoughts in the comments below.